Tennessee hires Josh Heupel. Stop. I know what you're doing or thinking. You're laughing, and I know. Stop it. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what the hell is Josh Heupel? Yeah, I know. A quarterback for Oklahoma 100 years ago, right? Most recently, head coach at Central Florida. How'd he get there? Well, we'll talk about all that. But here's the main thing I've been saying about Tennessee. They better, whoever they choose, they better be 100% sure he'll say yes. You remember 3 years ago when they ended up with Pruitt, 7, 8, 9 people turned the job down. It just became a rolling joke almost. You see, what happens is the more people turn a job down, the harder it becomes to get somebody to take the job, because everybody's like, well, if 8 other people turned it down, do I really want to take this job? In Tennessee, with all they have going on, I mean, we're beating a dead horse, and I'm really not going to get into all of it, but they've been one of the worst programs in America in the last 15 years. It's just from holding up the trash cans to all the Butch-isms, the brick by brick stuff, losing to Georgia State, beating Georgia and Florida in the same year in 2016, having the East just about sewn up, but then losing to South Carolina and Vandy to end the season, blowing their chance at winning the East. Now the recruiting stuff that's going on, Lane Kiffin leaving them in the middle of the night after one season, the debacle that was Derek Dooley. It's just been a long list of disasters for Tennessee. And so I said that, 8 years ago, 8, 9 people, or 3 years ago, 8, 9 people turned the job down. They ended up with Jeremy Pruitt. Match made in heaven. Nobody wanted the Tennessee job. Nobody wanted Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, I went over all this. Pruitt's just not going to work out. He's not head coach material. I don't think it was a Tennessee issue for Jeremy Pruitt. I don't think Jeremy Pruitt's a head coach. He's an amazing defensive coach, and not everybody's cut out to be a head coach. And I didn't think Jeremy Pruitt was, and it turns out I was right. At least at Tennessee, he was absolutely terrible, just awful there. But he's gone. You're moving on from him, and so you're going, okay, is Tennessee a better job now than it was 3 years ago? Can they really go out and get whoever they want? No and no. Of course it's not a better job now than it was 3 years ago. So if all those people turned it down 3 years ago, you have to assume the same thing would happen this year. So you guys know all the big names that start popping up anytime there's a mention of a coaching search. I mean, everybody from Luke Fickell to Matt Campbell to PJ Fleck up in Minnesota. It's on and on and on and on and on, right? I mean, we heard rumors for Lane Kiffin wanting the Tennessee job, Hugh Freeze wanting the Tennessee job, Jeff Fisher, the ex-Tennessee Titans coach. These are all big names. Big names that had no interest in ruining their career by taking over Tennessee right now. Of all the mistakes and bumbling around that Tennessee has done over the last 15 years, and there's a ton of it, starting with the original sin, firing Philip Fulmer, back when they did or whatever. It's been a disaster since then. It's about to be worse than it's been at any point. The recruiting problems that they ran into under Jeremy Pruitt, unless a miracle occurs, is going to kick dirt on the grave of the Tennessee Volunteer football program. Tennessee is not a very good team right now in ideal circumstances, okay? And then you look at what's going on. Well, we just had a graduating class. You lose on average 20 players to graduation every year, right? You start with 85 scholarships. You lose 20 to graduation on average per year to put you down to 65. They've got 21 players in the transfer portal. 21. Take another 20 off of 65, you're down to what, 45? You can't sign but 25 to make up for that in this year's class. So you're sitting there 85, 65, 45, plus 25. So, maybe 70 scholarship players next year. On top of that, we don't know what the NCAA is going to do when they hand down their decisions on whatever investigation ends up finishing up there. We don't, how bad is it going to be? Will there be some kind of a miracle where the sanctions aren't that bad? it appears to me, at least, that Tennessee is headed for at least, at a minimum, an Ole Miss type punishment from a few years ago with Hugh Freeze. I think they're looking at a bowl ban for at least a year. Now that's probably no big deal because Tennessee is going to be basically self-imposing a bowl ban for the next couple of years anyway. They're not going to be good enough to make a bowl game, so that's not a huge deal. But if they start taking away scholarships, which is what's probably going to happen, I don't know how many, and then they usually spread it out over a certain number of years. But let's say they take even 10 or 15 scholarships away over a 2 or 3 year period. Even if they spread it out over 3 years, you lose 4 or 5 scholarships per year. You might not think that matters. That matters. Recruiting is not a science. It's an art. And people get it wrong all the time. Even teams like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, whoever you want to name, recruiting in the top 5 every year. Not every 5-star they sign ends up being an amazing player. Not every 4-star ends up being amazing. I mean, so you need, to lose 4 or 5 years is a huge deal. And, Tennessee could be in a lot of trouble here. So, no, it's not a better job now than it was 3 years ago. And so to give Tennessee's administration, I guess, a little bit of credit, I said, I don't think Tennessee should offer this job to anybody that they're not 100% sure is going to take this job, because they don't need the extra, insult added to injury of having a bunch of coaches turn this job down again. That's why I was never sold on some of these big names we were hearing. I mean, last go around, it was the whole John Gruden thing, and anybody with any sense at all knew that wasn't happening, but that doesn't include Tennessee fans for obvious reasons. They thought it was. That wasn't. Lane Kiffin and the Tennessee guy that calls into my nighttime show, I like him, and to his credit, he has been right on a lot of things. But he was dead wrong here. He called in last week sometime, and write it down, mark it down, done deal. It's happening. It's Lane Kiffin. No, it's not Lane. It was never Lane Kiffin. It was never Hugh Freeze. How are you going to fire Pruitt for basically buying players, illegal benefits to recruits, and then bring in a coach who was fired 3 years ago from another SEC school for the exact same thing? So that was never going to happen either. It has nothing to do with Hugh Freeze's coaching ability or what I think about that. Hugh Freeze is a pretty good on-field coach. He can develop players, good offensive mind. Look what he did at Ole Miss. Look what he did at Liberty. He's a pretty good coach. But he's out of buying players at Ole Miss. He got fired. That was not happening. Jeff Fisher, the guy's never coached in college, ever. He played for Southern Cal in college, then played for the Bears in the NFL, then bounced around a few NFL teams for 15 years, and then became the head coach of the Tennessee Titans for 5 or 6 years, and he's been retired for 4 or 5 years. That was never happening. People like Luke Fickell and Matt Campbell, these guys have been turning down head coaching jobs every year for several years. Why? Waiting on the Tennessee job to open? No. I mean, so that was never happening. A couple of Clemson assistants got mentioned. Brent Venables, Tony Elliott. I think that's his name, Tony, whatever. It's something Elliott. Again, these are coaches that get offered jobs all the time. They don't take them. They're sitting around waiting on Tennessee? No. So that was never happening. Honestly, the only coach that I heard mentioned that I said, you know what, that's possible, was the guy from Coastal Carolina. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the head coach of Coastal Carolina. Why? Well, this time last year, no one watching this video could name him. Hell, I still can't name him. But no one knew who he was. This was a totally and completely out of the blue season that Coastal Carolina had. Amazing, unbelievable. Literally every college football fan in America talked at some point about Coastal Carolina this year. They had an amazing season. Their offense was fun to watch. I don't know how many of you watched any Coastal Carolina games. It was worth your while if you did, though. They were fun to watch. They're never getting any better than they were this past year, though. That's not repeating at Coastal Carolina. Sorry. I mean, that's not an insult or a knock at Coastal Carolina. Sometimes lightning strikes, and that's what happened for Coastal Carolina. And that coach was hot now. So, yeah, I could see that happening because this guy is not in a position to turn down offers, in my opinion, the Coastal Carolina guy. Now, for all I know, maybe they did offer it to him and he turned it down, but I don't think so. But So I said, well, maybe they'll get him. And I honestly thought that'd be maybe the best they can do. Outside of that, I said, it's going to be a left field hire like with Jeremy Pruitt. It's going to be somebody that no one is talking about, because anybody that you can think of off the top of your head is going to say no. So they wind up with Josh Heupel. Back to him now. What do I think about this hire? Well, in terms of going out and offering the job to somebody that is not going to say no, A+. No one saw this coming. No one wants Josh Heupel. I tell you that right now. Tennessee didn't have to cut in line of a bunch of other schools to hire Josh Heupel. This guy was on nobody's radar. Played quarterback for Oklahoma many moons ago. Then became a graduate assistant. Worked his way up at various different schools and programs around the country over the last 15 years or so. A journeyman would be a good way to describe this Josh Heupel. This is going to be Josh Heupel's 8th different coaching job in the last 16 years. Boy, this is perfect for Tennessee. This is perfect. I don't even know if this guy's ever bought a house. 8 different jobs he's had in the last 16 years. Now he lands in Knoxville from Central Florida. Central Florida was the only place he was ever a head coach. How'd he do? Well, everybody remembers Central Florida in 2017, right? Undefeated fake national champions in 2017 after humiliating Auburn in the Brunch Bowl there on New Year's 6. That was Scott Frost, though. He left after that season. He struck while the iron was hot. Went to Nebraska. Now, that hasn't exactly worked out, Nebraska man, but anyway, that's not the point of this video. And so who did Central Florida bring in? They brought in Josh Heupel as head coach. So 2017, Central Florida was 200-0, or whatever they were, greatest team in the history of history. Undefeated, huge New Year's 6 win over the Barn, an SEC team. Riding high. There's no stopping Central Florida now. They'll probably win 100 fake national titles in a row. In rides Josh Heupel, 2018, and what happens? Well, didn't go undefeated, didn't win a New Year's 6 bowl. Had a good season, though, lost 1 game. So Josh Heupel's first year at Central Florida, only a little bit worse than when he got there. He inherited an undefeated New Year's 6 winning team, lost 1 game. That was 2018. 2019, how'd that work out? No New Year's 6 bowl, no New Year's 6 win, no big major bowl win. Lost 3 games. Uh-oh. Heading in the wrong direction there. Joshua, you inherit an undefeated team from 17. In 18, you lose 1 game. 19, lose 3 games. Not good. Not good. 2020, COVID year, coronavirus season. He'll get it turned around. 6-4. 6-4. You inherit an undefeated fake national championship New Year's 6 Peach Bowl win over Auburn team from 17. First year, you lose 1 game. Second year, you lose 3 games. Third year, you lose 4 games. You go 6-4. Clearly trending in the wrong direction here. You've taken a finely tuned Audi R8, let's call it, and you've turned it into a Volkswagen Jetta. That's what you did. And then you hit the lottery, and Tennessee comes knocking. And boy, you couldn't get out of Central Florida quick enough, could you? Now, there's the obvious connection here, right? Tennessee just hired a new athletic director to replace Philip Fulmer. Danny White. Where did Danny White come from? Central Florida. Yes. Danny White was the athletic director at Central Florida. He hired Josh Heupel, or Josh Heupel worked under him. Tennessee did what they had to do here. We can clown and mock and laugh at Josh Heupel and debate whether or not it's going to work out or not, and I'll sort of wrap up with that in a second. It's hard to argue against them doing what they did, though. They get an athletic director. The athletic director says, "Listen, I know Josh Heupel. He'll take the job." They offer it to him. He takes the job. Tennessee saves themselves the embarrassment of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 coaches turning the job down, which I think is good for Tennessee. They don't need that. wrap up here. What do I really think about this hire? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What's Tennessee's immediate future look like in the next 2 or 3 years? Bleak, dull, and abysmal. It doesn't matter. I kept saying this all along. It doesn't matter who Tennessee hires this time. It doesn't. Whoever they hire right now is a stopgap. It's a temporary solution. Well, it's not even a solution. It's a temporary stopgap to a much bigger problem. No one could succeed at Tennessee right now. Nobody. Nick Saban could leave Alabama today, move to Knoxville. They would struggle to make a bowl next year. Period. That's just the reality. Talent is the majority of college football, and there ain't none in Tennessee. You lost all your graduating players, 20, whatever that was. 21 players are transferring, and these aren't normal transfers. These aren't second and third stringers. These are starters, and some of them are legitimate big-time SEC players. This Henry Toto at inside linebacker would start or at least play a lot in the rotation on any team in the SEC. Running back Eric Gray, offensive lineman Wanya Morris, 5-star tackle. Those don't grow on trees. The best players on both sides of the ball for Tennessee have left Knoxville. You're left with 45 scholarship players approximately, plus whatever recruiting class you have for 2021. And it's possible that some of those kids that have already committed to Tennessee are let out of their letter of intent because of the impending sanctions that are most likely coming. So you could lose some or all of your 2021 recruiting class and be forced to pick up scraps with signing day 1 week away. Signing day is 1 week from today, the first Wednesday in February. Had the December signing day, the final signing day this coming Wednesday. So he's not going to succeed at Tennessee, and that's not a knock on Josh Heupel, because no one right now would succeed at Tennessee in the next 2 to 3 years, period. And it's just impossible to predict anything in college football outside of 2 or 3 years, in my opinion. Now, you can guess based on who's good almost all the time, but in terms of looking at a team or its talent or its schedule or its coaches, about 2, 3, 4 years out is all you can really try to even project, I think. And it's not going to be good for Tennessee. It's just not. They're basically starting over again right now. You got Harrison Bailey at quarterback. He's got nobody to throw the ball to. He's got nobody to block for him. He's got nobody to hand the ball off to. Defense, not very good the last couple of years, even though you had a defensive-minded coordinator and a good one in Jeremy Pruitt, and what talent you did have graduated or transferring out. So it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Which is why I'm not upset or laughing really at this Josh Heupel hire, because Tennessee was between a rock and a hard place. There was no good coach was going to come to Tennessee, given the talent that's there, and more importantly, the talent that's not there, plus the likely impending sanctions coming from the NCAA. No legitimate big-name coach is going to want to take that on. Josh Heupel, best he can hope for, in my opinion, if you're Josh Heupel, or even if you're Tennessee. Josh Heupel can get you through the next 2 or 3 years, hovering around 500. Maybe you make a bowl, maybe you become bowl eligible once, twice, 3 times, all 4 years, whatever, in the next 3 or 4 years. That's about the ceiling. You get out from underneath these sanctions, and maybe then you're in a little bit better of a position to go out and hire one of the big name coaches that I know the fans want, and probably the administration too. But it wasn't going to happen this go round, just for obvious reasons. So there you go. Josh Heupel to the hill. Welcome to the Thunderdome, Joshua.